I am Reverend Jeff Snyder. I am the pastor of First-Calvary Baptist Church in beautiful North Andover, Massachusetts. If you ever find yourself up in our neck of the woods around 10:30 in the morning on Sunday, please drop in. We'd be glad to have you, and we mean that. I want to talk to you today. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and I want to talk to you today about the seriosity that I see growing all around us today, and what we can do about that. We don't need to be that serious all the time, do we? Well, there are things to do. Proverbs, well, we'll go to Proverbs first. And Proverbs, well, that's like a wise, good-hearted elder who takes you aside, sits you down in front of a nice fire and gives you a hot mug of something to drink and then offers you some really good advice for living. And does it in a gentle way that you can actually take it in. You enjoy hearing from this individual. Let's take a look at Proverbs 17:22. And it reads, "A cheerful heart is a good medicine, but a downcast spirit dries up the bones." It's pretty well put. I've been noticing lately that a whole lot of people are anything but cheerful in their hearts in many places today. News commentary shows are incredibly downcast. I mean, the dried bone just pours out of the speakers and into our ears. Social media is filled with bone dust. The comment sections are just covered in the stuff. So it's true also that we are what we consume. And if we take in too much of this downcast spirit, it'll dry us up as well. George Lucas mentions this about the Star Wars franchise he created. He complained that years after the original films came out, the fans were taking the movies, well, far too seriously. Originally, they had been fond and fun tributes to the action movies of the 1950s that George enjoyed so much himself. But now that they're taking it so seriously, they're coming to hate all of the fun characters that he's put in the movie. Anybody with a sense of humor, they want them all to be very serious and very dry. Has it really come to that? Because that's a very dusty attitude indeed. Well, for hundreds of years, the church found that it was easier to use fear to keep people on the straight and narrow, to get them to follow what you say. But that's a very dusty approach. Fortunately, that's being replaced with good medicine in more recent years with a cheerful heart. Joy is the dustbuster of faith. Joy, joyous, joyful, rejoice. They appear over 400 times throughout both Testaments. Surely, that must make them far more important than the issues that people dustily argue about that appear maybe a handful of times at best throughout the entire Bible. So let's look at a story of Jesus's that helps show us the joyful alternative. Let's take a look at the wedding at Cana that Jesus was attending. The disciples were attending. Jesus's mom was attending. These may have been friends of the family. If you are not familiar with the story, take a look at John chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Read it through a couple of times. Make yourself familiar with it, and then come back here. Just pause this for now. We'll wait. And when you're ready, we'll get into it. This was a joyful situation that was about to go really bad. For anyone who ever lived in a small town, you like to keep on good terms with most people there because everybody knows everybody's business, right? And this young couple has just been married, and the husband is responsible for making sure that there's enough provisions for the entire 7-day party marathon that occurs after the wedding. So imagine you're about to run out of something as basic as wine at this wedding party, and you're going to hear about that for the rest of your life in that community. In fact, somebody will probably come up with a witty nickname for you based on that particular error. And Mary, Jesus' mom, she notices the situation's about to go really bad. That this joyous wedding is about to take a turn toward downcast spirits and dry bones. She doesn't want that for her friends. And so she turns to Jesus. She mentions the problem. And I imagine she raises an eyebrow toward her son, as if to imply, son, what are you going to do about this? Respectfully, he counters. He knows his mom well. He knows what she's saying. And he counters, woman, which was considered a very respectful address back in the day. Jesus was a good son. And he says, this isn't my time. I'm not ready yet to perform my first miracle, because that leads me down a very serious road into my ministry and everything that is to come. I just don't feel prepared at this point. Well, Mary refuses to argue with Jesus publicly. So she calmly and smoothly turns to the servants near them and just tells them, do whatever Jesus tells you to do. Then she turns her back on her son without another word and walks away. Probably with a smile on her face, knowing full well she's just outmaneuvered her son, as only a mother can do. Jesus, he doesn't want the couple to be embarrassed either. He doesn't want them to have a poor reputation. He doesn't want a joyless end to the wedding celebration, something they'll remember for years, painfully rather than joyously. Although it doesn't use the term joy, joyful, joyous, rejoice in this particular text, that is the result of Jesus' next move. Jesus is a quick thinker, and he calls for the servants to fill up right near them 6 really large stone jars. They would hold enough for 20 or 30 gallons of water, and they were intended to be jars used in ritual purification ceremonies. Imagine 6 jars holding 20 or 30 gallons about to be filled. It's going to take a little while. So once they're filled, Jesus now mysteriously tells the servant to take a dipper of this water over to the chief steward, who must have been going mad right about now, knowing the situation, because he too was responsible for making sure that all the provisions were maintained throughout the entire wedding. He was not having a joyful moment here. I said, take it over to him and let him taste it. And of course, Jesus has turned the water into wine. And we'll let the steward tell us about the quality of the wine. His eyes may have bugged out at that moment, because all of a sudden he forgets himself. He forgets his decorum and his dignity, and he calls across the noisy room to the bridegroom and says, hey, or sir, or something to get his attention. Everyone serves the good wine first, but then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now. The steward and the bridegroom have been saved from a really serious embarrassment. The steward's job may well have been saved by Jesus' actions. And the estimation among the guests of the bridegroom's hospitality has gone through the roof in an age when hospitality was held in extremely high regard. Jesus performs so well that I'm sure there was plenty of wine left over for the bride and groom to enjoy long after the wedding was done. Imagine them bringing out this superior wine when friends or visitors come to call, and just reinforcing that impression of how hospitable they are. What a beautiful wedding gift that was from Jesus to this couple. Enduring joy has come to them, and it comes from Jesus. So, when we've been dining on too much bone dust, it's left a really bad taste in our mouths when we're downcast and gloomy. Let's leave that aside Let's challenge ourselves to see life's blessings instead of the curses. But talk is cheap, you say, right? Absolutely, good point. So let me give you an example. All right. For a couple of weeks, I had a hangnail on one finger that had gotten infected. Man, that was painful. Had to keep a close eye on it, had to, clean it up on a regular basis and make sure it would eventually heal, which it did. But that was not a fun procedure. Well, after that, Valentine's Day rolled around, and for Valentine's Day, my wife and I decided we would go out to dinner at a lovely local restaurant. I've reached a point in my life where chocolate's probably not a really good idea, so better to go out and have a nice dinner, right? And we were surprised as we were eating because in comes a barbershop septet that was strolling restaurant to restaurant to restaurant throughout the neighborhood. And they sang some Valentine's Day songs, as only a barbershop group can. And before they left, after a couple of songs, they gave every lady in the room a single rose. It was a really nice touch. Which of these two events do you think I should choose to remember if I want to live in joy? Well, it's the restaurant event, of course. I'm going to just drop the baggage aside of that finger that was painful for a couple of weeks. It's that easy. It really is. It's a matter of will. It's a matter of choice. We get to choose. And it takes effort. It takes discipline to make ourselves a happier life, a more joyous life. How are we going to look at it? What are we going to do? And how do we keep that joy? Well, joy is more robust than happiness, so it tends to hang around longer. And if we follow the two great commandments of Jesus that Jesus mentions, loving God and loving neighbors, we're well on our way. And neighbors are everyone, actually. We should love them as best we can. Share our joy with them. And then by doing that, we end up loving God as well. So it's all wrapped up into one joyous package. It just keeps going. And when we do that to other people, it increases our enthusiasm, increases how we feel about ourselves, and we end up loving ourselves as well. Because truly, you can't love your neighbor well if you don't also love yourself. So it's the complete package. Jesus also said in John 15, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. Live in that love I have for you. If you keep my commandments," and we've already discussed the two great ones, "as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love, I have said." Let me say that again. I muddled the words. "If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete." We need to live in the love of Jesus. Follow where Jesus leads, and enjoy the joy that Jesus wants us all to have. Enjoy it completely. Sure, Jesus and I are not Pollyannas. There are going to be times of trouble. There's going to be pain, like that finger of mine. Little pain, big pain. It comes and it goes. And here's Jesus' comments on that. And this is in John 16, if you want to check up on it. "When a woman is in labor, she has pain, because her hour has come. But when her child is born, she no longer remembers the anguish because of the joy of having brought a human being into the world. So you have pain now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you." Pain comes, pain goes, but the joy of Jesus will be part of our lives, allowing us to forget the pain And it's best to forget that. We don't want to hold on to that pain any more than we want to hold on to a grudge. We don't want to draw that into our hearts and let it make us more dusty, as some people are known to do. Tragically, it's a sad thing, because it leads to those dusty bones. And we don't want that. So let's use cheerfulness as good medicine. Let Jesus' joy into our hearts where Jesus wants it to be. Let's follow Jesus' instructions for living a good life. And when we do, the Apostle Paul assures us that the results will be the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Each and every one of those, which is guaranteed to be dust-free. So let's rejoice in that. I hope you have a joyous day, a joyous week, a joyous life, and I hope to see you again here soon. So long for now. God bless you all. We'll talk again